Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Discover with Sbenati. I'm your host, Dr. Halim Sbenati, and today we have an amazing guest. As always, we only bring on phenomenal guests, and today is absolutely no exception. Thank you for those that are tuning in to YouTube. Thank you for those that are tuning in to the podcast when you're listening, whether you're driving to work or walking the dog or working out or whatever you're doing. Thank you for tuning in. Today is going to be covered, we're covering a lot of bases with regards to business. We have with us Phil Campusano, sorry for butchering your last name. And but he is a mogul and someone that deserves a lot more attention than he's getting. And he's going to get that today. So we're going to talk a lot about business. We're going to talk about how he got to the level that he got to now. He's a pharmacist by trade, but he also is a businessman extraordinaire. So he's done a lot in terms of the business field. He's taken over quite a bit when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry, and he's done a lot of other things which I'll let him explain. And he'll tell us how he's done it and how you can model him in doing what he did. Okay, and hopefully we can gain a little bit of insight from that. Phil, thank you so much for joining us on Discover with Sbenati. It's an honor to have you on.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I really appreciate the kind introduction.
It's my pleasure. So Phil, let's get straight to it. So can you just give a little bit, maybe a minute or two, about who you are and what you're involved in right now?
I guess I describe myself as kind of a social entrepreneur. My concept is to start or start a business or start a company or work with companies that can make a large impact on society. Okay. And what I mean by that is I really look for things that I can help an individual or help many people at the same time, and help. It's the ideal, save a life or try to get the maximum impact on the individual, while at the same time seeing if I can help kind of the country or the province or society from a financial benefit. So I'm always looking to do business where I can make a big impact, but at the same time save money for society, because I do realize that that's where I think I can try to find value, and there's both elements of the bigger picture of society, but also the individual also matters.
Wow.
And so I get a lot more fulfillment thinking I'm doing both.
Right.
And
so you're marrying altruism with business, basically.
Yes.
You're trying to benefit people by doing business.
It's Canada.
Right.
And so even here, whether you're right or left wing, you believe in universal health care. It's kind of a Canadian thing.
Right.
And so it makes sense for me. So I just try to apply those values. And obviously, if any business, you need to generate income so that we can continue to take care of the people. And so
speaking of business,
yeah.
What business are you in?
I'm in the business of helping people, and for me, that can take many shapes. And so by training, as you said, I'm a pharmacist. So I graduated in 2006 from the University of Toronto School of Pharmacy, and I bought my first pharmacy the day I got my license. And so
that's very impressive.
It was a little scary at the time, but I don't let fear stop me. And so I was very motivated to try to see if I can have an impact. And in order to do that, you have to take some risks. But I'm comfortable that if I do my best and I'm helping people, things work out, especially in healthcare, especially in Canada.
Right.
And so I kind of have faith in those elements. I have faith in our culture, and I have faith in you will thrive if you're providing that kind of service for people. Right. And so
I really believe that too. I really do believe that.
Well, and I think it works best here. I really do, because it's part of our fabric. Like we can be capitalist in Canada, but it's hard to do it in healthcare.
Right.
And so you're straddling that that area also.
That's
and so I think you probably understand my words even better
100%.
because you're part of the public, but private also.
That's right.
And so and so you have to be a little extra careful when you're practicing business in healthcare in Canada.
That's right.
It can't just be about the money.
Right. Well, because you're providing that healthcare.
Yes.
Right. And at the same time, you're running a business.
That's right.
So it's a fine line. But I mean, but to me, and then you iterated it very well, business actually helps people, right?
And I can't help more people if I run my business unprofitably.
Right.
And so I can't hire,
Right.
I can't do anything. And that's the worst thing, because if you're able to impact someone's life,
Right.
and you stop at that one individual,
Right.
I'm not saying they don't have value, but you know, for me, I'd like to have a larger impact if I can.
Right.
And so the only way I ever thought that I was going to impact the most amount of people is I need to not only impact the individual, but try to find things that can make a wider difference. You know, in my perfect world, it would be, you know, outside of Canada and
Right.
globally.
Right.
And so, but obviously,
impoverished areas.
yes. Not only, I think, you know, I think I enjoy helping, you know, of course I enjoy helping poor people or people who have more difficulty, but, you know, even people with means, helping them, they're grateful.
Right.
I just believe that, you know, everybody deserves to be helped.
Right.
And sure, some people have had harder times.
Good viewpoint.
But I really don't pick and choose fully. Obviously, it's easier sometimes to help people who have less means.
Right. Right.
But,
Okay. So you started off with one pharmacy.
yes.
Okay.
But
Do you-
within the year, I bought a second one.
Within the first year, you bought a second one.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Wow.
Yes.
And then after that, because
you know,
do you want to tell the audience how far you progressed?
well, I have an ownership stake. I don't really run the pharmacies day to day. I have an ownership stake in over 60 pharmacies.
Okay.
And it ranges, but I really have excellent partners.
Okay.
And I allow them to, well, not even allow them, sometimes they're the ones who allowed me to be part of it.
Right.
And so every situation I have a different role and capacity. Sometimes I do take a leadership role, sometimes my only role is to be grateful and appreciative of my partners.
Right.
And so it really depends on the situation.
So basically now you have a stake in 60 pharmacies.
Yes.
That's quite a bit.
Yes.
And how did you? So I mean, to run one pharmacy is a lot of work,
Yes.
right?
Especially when you're trying to do everything you can for every customer and every patient and every staff member.
Right.
And you're taking everybody very seriously,
Right.
and their needs very seriously, and you're giving your all. There's literally not enough time.
So then walk us through it. How did you manage to, from a business standpoint, how did you manage to secure a second pharmacy within 1 year?
Well, first of all, as soon as I realized that the business was needed, I started off in a town called Red Lake, Ontario.
Okay.
And so it was the only pharmacy in the community, and they were in need of services. And so I was very keen. I just finished graduating school.
Yeah.
I wanted to, make a difference in everybody's lives.
Right.
I really was that kind of person. I've always imagined making major differences in people's lives, and I could use my knowledge. I took school very seriously, it really comes back. I think I got a lot of appreciation from the community, and which just motivated me further. I realized that this was an excellent business, especially if you can provide those services. And to be honest, pharmacists aren't really business people. The first year I bought my pharmacy, I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment nobody else had in all of Northern Ontario. And the only reason I did it is because I wanted to bring new technology, a little bit like your practice here. I want to have the best things for my customers. And even if it doesn't really improve the bottom line, but if it improves a safety profile,
Right.
if I'm making, if I can eliminate certain types of errors, I don't have to worry about them, well, that's very valuable for me. And so I'm always trying to push myself and push what I can bring. I'm always trying to differentiate myself. And I don't really look around what everybody else is doing. I look around at what could be done, what should be done. And because they were all my customers and they were allowing me to prosper, I just felt a need to give back. And so my next pharmacy was in Marathon. It's another small town in Northern Ontario.
Okay.
And
So that's where you started. You started up in the north.
that's right, because
Okay.
right out of school, they were the pharmacies that I could afford to buy
Right.
at that time.
Right. And just run us through some numbers. So how much did it cost you to purchase that?
Well, it depends, but they're priced differently these days.
Okay.
The pharmacies have gone through a lot of changes.
Okay.
And so, but it's $2 million, $3 million of dollars. Pharmacies cost
Okay.
a lot of money generally.
Even up north? That's
Up
how much
north,
they
it's a little less, but
Okay.
it depends on the size of them.
cost? Okay.
And so, at the time, pharmacies were priced differently. They've been cut a lot recently.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot more pressure on them now. But they're being grouped, so I think it's harder for an individual now to get into pharmacy.
Okay.
I think I was fortunate, and I was willing to go into remote locations.
Right.
And
Where a lot of people aren't.
they're willing to go.
aren't
A
willing.
lot of my friends and colleagues at school thought, "Wow, you're going where? And is your wife coming with you?" And so it was, but I learned so much going up there. And I think, I think wherever you are, big city or small town, it comes back.
Mm-hmm.
The effort you put out, but I do believe those small communities it comes back a little faster.
Of course.
I just, for me, that's fuel.
Right.
And so.
Do you still own that one?
I sold
Okay.
Red Lake, but I still maintained a small percentage of that
Okay.
pharmacy. So I am still an owner
I
of
got
that
you.
pharmacy.
I got
But I would always want to have a connection to them.
Right.
I feel connected to that community.
Right.
Anytime I see a product or something that I think could benefit society, I imagine bringing it back to Red Lake.
I got you.
And so it's almost like a litmus test.
I-
Do the people up there,
Right.
would they benefit from it?
Right.
How could I do it? How could I make it possible?
Right.
Because it's only 5,000 people, so it's
very
3
small
towns.
community.
It's not
Right.
even that many people really in the one town, and so it's not easy to bring services that are viable long term
Right.
there.
Right.
And so that's been one of my passions is to try to bring more services to Northern Ontario. So usually that's where I've opened up a lot of my pharmacies in smaller communities. Is I really put effort into, if there's a town that never had a pharmacy in their history, I'd
Yeah.
like to try to open a pharmacy there.
I got you.
And so,
That makes sense.
we opened one in Near Falls and Ignace and Kakabeka Falls
Okay.
and Keewatin. If these are all small towns. in
So
Northern
that's how you
Ontario.
started off. You started off in small towns, like very rural.
Well, my third
communities.
pharmacy was in Toronto, but
Your first pharmacy was in Toronto.
Yes, and keep in mind that I have multiple partners, and so my main group up north, which they're really running the show up there, and they're really the champions of it. I might have given the idea and have it started, but they're the ones that have really continued it
Right.
and have managed it
Yes.
and have taken care of those communities. I might have been the one who showed them
Okay.
that it was needed,
Right.
and they agreed, and
Right.
then,
I got
and
you.
then supported me.
I got
And
you.
so those pharmacies are more of a minority owner in them.
Okay.
I continue to try to bring more to those communities. I'm trying to bring
from-
primary care.
So from someone that's trying to learn like what you did and trying to model you in the way that you did things, you said the first thing you did was you bought a pharmacy in Toronto proper.
No, in Red Lake was my first one.
Okay, so the
in
first one was
in
Red Lake.
Toronto. It was my first pharmacy. I started from scratch, and,
Okay.
that was in Woodbridge.
Woodbridge. Okay, so what else? So the first pharmacy that you bought was in Red Lake.
Yes,
The second one was in
Marathon.
Marathon. And how far are they apart?
Well, they're about 9 hours drive.
9 hours. Wow. And how did you make the connection that you should go to Marathon?
It's not like that. Part of my life is I'm constantly looking for opportunity, meeting people, networking myself. I was, I made some noise buying a pharmacy right away out of school.
Right.
I looked at financing options, and even though I went with Scotiabank at the time, there were other organizations out there also looking to, secure the loan, the one to give me the loan.
Of course.
And, I built relationships with them, and they said, hey, there's a pharmacy in Marathon that it's always broken down. They couldn't get it sold. Something happens, but it always breaks down. And so I thought, okay, well, let me call them and let's see what I could do. And after having many hours on the phone, multiple days, over time, I kind of realized why it was breaking down. And once I realized why I was breaking down, then I figured out how I could close it. And so I was able to purchase that, and that's how I got my second pharmacy.
That's very smart. And so after marathon then, so you had 2 in the first year.
Right.
And then walk us through when you got your 4th, 6th, 8th.
You know, I don't really, I can't tell you the exact dates and times right now. Like when you acquire 60 over time, and those are not just my only companies. I've done a lot more things.
Okay.
Also. And so, you know, over the next, you know, I think we probably had about 25 pharmacies about 5 years out, 6 years out of school. So
And is that normal to have?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
Okay. What do you attribute your secret to?
I would suggest that I believe that I could provide really high level of service, and my trick to doing that is I take care of staff, or I try to take care of staff, because if you take care of your staff, they take care of your customers.
Right.
Obviously, I try to lead the way by showing how important my customers are, how I'm able to go the extra mile. You know, one of the things I try to explain to everybody, it's not just enough to, you know, do a great job. It's you really have to make an impression. And to make an impression, sometimes you go above and beyond. And so I would try to do things that maybe weren't part of my job.
Okay.
But
can you give us an example?
if somebody, you know, they couldn't afford a drug, but in order to get the drug, which they could fill out paperwork, but in order to get on program so that eventually it's covered, you have to do your taxes. And they haven't done their taxes because maybe they don't have the wherewithal. Let me see if I can get somebody to help you do your taxes. And then once I help them get through their taxes, okay, let's apply to the government program so you can get your medications covered. Okay, well, they can't talk to me directly, but I can be on the phone with you. So let me just hold your hand and do it. And it's a little extra work. I don't get paid for it, but it's a person that now they can have access to their medications. And your staff see it. Your other customers see what you're doing. And so it's kind of my advertising. I don't really advertise in the newspaper. I kind of put my time and energy in my people, my customers. And
it works internally.
It works, you know, and to me, I don't even think of it that way. It's natural to do that for myself. When I see somebody that needs help and I can help them, I can't help them in my head.
That's amazing.
And so for me, not to help them is literally, you know, somebody's falling and I could pick them up and I don't. They might not know, nobody else might not know, but I know. And so that's a little hard for me to accept. I'll grit my teeth and then I'll make me, you know, and so I obviously sometimes, you know, I can't stop and help. I have responsibilities. But I'll pay some kind of price for it.
That's amazing.
Mentally.
That's amazing.
And so.
So did you grow up like? Is your family business oriented? Like, where'd you get all this business acumen from?
No, my family's not at all business. I think it's I'm the oldest. I've had you know, the kind of leadership role in the family at a very young age. My mom, you know, had me very young, and I was a single mom when I was 7. You know, and so I had kind of a leadership role in the family very early, and so I've always felt the need to take care of my family, and so it's hard to do that and not you know. So business was a natural, and just learning about how to you know, prosper. It was very important to me, and so, you know, making good decisions. I was obsessed with making the right decision. I read a series called the Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. It's a very famous science fiction series. It's like the Tolkien series of science fiction.
Isaac what?
Isaac Asimov is the author. And one of the premises of the theory is that one of the individuals, for whatever reason, just doesn't make mistakes. And, you know, the universe kind of wanted to know, what would you do? Because they wanted to make the right decision. So, you know, make a decision for the universe, not just for humankind. And I thought, imagine that. Imagine I could, I apologize. Imagine I could never make mistakes. And I just, you know, of course it's impossible. But the concept of it is, you know, what couldn't I accomplish? And so, you know, I really try to say, you know, what's the right decision? And it's not always the, you know, making the right decision. I don't think it's about focusing on the now only. It's what are the implications of what you're doing. And so I think it was the right decision to buy the pharmacy on the first day. I don't think it's the hardest business to learn if you're taking care of your customers. Of course, I made tons of financial mistakes without being a businessman, but I overrode them in that industry. Now I'd be more careful because the margins are lower. It's harder to make $1 in pharmacy. And so, you know, it might not be enough necessarily to just do amazing service. But you know, I would hope that it's still enough. I'm a little bit removed from the ground there. I don't practice anymore. But I think picking the industry is very, it's a growing industry. And again, that industry, by me providing medication, especially appropriate medications, I'm saving the system a lot of money. By me put extra effort in making sure the patient takes their medication. That prevents them, end up in the hospital because they didn't take their medication, because they won't admit it. Why'd you get here? Oh, I don't know. Well, you didn't take your medication. So, I try to not just give you your medication, I'm going to motivate you to take it. It's my responsibility.
That's right.
Follow up. Did you take it? Get a little upset with you if you don't take it. Not because I'm trying to bug you, because I care about you.
Right, kind of like their big brother.
Yes. When needed for certain personnel. If somebody, listen, you're the alpha male and you don't want to be told anything, well, then I'll play a lower role. But I still am trying to help.
Right. So what would you say would be the ingredient, or what advice would you give to someone that wants to get into the whole business aspect, but they haven't even started? They don't know where to start.
Well, I think it depends on where you are. If you're a young individual, then, I would suggest now it's great opportunities. You have a lot of, access to information. So start reading about business and start looking at people who've done it before, and read books and, success, how to be successful, those things, and just try to absorb as much information as you can. Try to apply it in your daily life. I think ultimately is, really look inside yourself and ask, why do you want to go into business? I think for me, the money is secondary. It comes or doesn't come sometimes because it is secondary, and so there's benefits and negatives to my style, because sometimes it's really useful and makes me money, but because I'm not focused, if you're not focused on money, sometimes you won't come either. And so it really depends on the situation, and so it's not something I could say it's follow this rule, but generally speaking, I think in healthcare, if you really focus on your customers, don't worry. I'll gladly lose money on the customer. Of course, I can't continue that 1,000 times, and so I have to change the systems. But on that one customer, no problem. That's easy. That's a no-brainer. I don't ask the question. Let's help. And then, okay, well, I just, I'm going to go bankrupt if I continue doing that. Well, how can we change it so I don't have to continue doing that? Or can I explain to people I can no longer continue doing that? Or I'm only going to be able to do it this many times and budget for that. And so.
So what I'm hearing from you is basically trying to get as much information as possible with regards to business in general. And in terms of opportunities present themselves after you gain the information, the insight.
I think, one of the other things I've always really been a fan of is understanding, what I call it, humans. I try to see myself not as as a little bit of an animal. And I try to understand what motivates me, and why do I get upset, and why do I get happy, and when do I say yes or when do I say no? And I learned very quickly that I'll give you very easily, but if you try to take, I don't like people taking things from me. But all you have to do is ask, and I'll give it to you.
I got you.
But you take it, and I won't give it to you no matter what. It's a psychology. And when I realized about me, I realized a lot of people are like that. And so now I can start applying those things. And so I've always been a student of people. And obviously you can use yourself because you know your real thoughts, or you can try to be honest with yourself. And so I'm very big on being honest with myself. I don't try to lie. I'm sure I do, but if I can ever figure out where I am, I enjoy those moments. And so I think trying to be real about yourself, and when you do notice that you're doing things wrong, ask yourself why. Could you be better? I think you can. And ultimately I make different decisions, not because I don't have the same things that maybe, I can get away with that. It's not that I don't think of it. I do think of it, and I just don't make that decision.
Have you always been an optimist?
Yes, I think I have. I've always felt that I can change things for the better if I start making good decisions. And so no matter where I am, if I just, in a sense, put my head down, which means work for me, and make good decisions, as many as I can, really good decisions, then it's only a matter of time before I start rising. I think
that's it right there. Because most people that I meet, they don't think like that.
Well, it's only a matter of time. I'm patient too. I'm in a hurry, but I'm patient. I've always wanted kids, but I wanted to wait till I was able to afford them and take care of them. At the same time, I graduated pharmacy school a little late because I was in Japan for 7 years between my undergrad and pharmacy school. And so when I graduated pharmacy school, I was in a little bit of a hurry. I felt that I was already, and I knew I wanted to start a family. And I had big ideas. I had big dreams. And so I didn't have a year or two to work for someone else and kind of learn the layouts. And the truth is that if I'm going to live my life, it would be my own exploration. I don't mind working for other people. I always say I am a good number two, but number one better be pretty good.
Right.
Right. If they're good, I love being number two. But if I'm under someone who I feel is not, leadership quality, it's hard for me not to
jump on the ship and
take over. Right. And if we're not successful or if we're damaging people while we're moving, it's hard for me to sit back and just watch those things. I tend to,
especially because you're the eldest in the family.
Yes,
that's your role.
I take over. And it's kind of my issue. My team, they take me to a meeting. It's like, you sure you want me there? It's hard for me not to.
Right.
If everything's going well, but as soon as I see there's either miscommunication or we're going down an inappropriate
the big
path,
brother steps in.
I have to step in.
Yeah.
And so it's I'm a two-edged sword.
So it's a good segue. You talk about Japan. So why don't you tell us? Because I know you told me the story before. So I want to hear the story. I want everyone to know the story. Why I got into pharmacy? Yes, and I really like that story.
So I got back. So 7 years in Japan teaching English, and I took it very seriously in Japan. I wasn't a normal English teacher in Japan. I started off working for Nova, which was the largest English school, but I instantly picked you worked 5 days? No, I worked 7 days, of course. And then I put I worked during the day, so I'd get there at 8, finish about 4, but then I filled every evening from 5 or 6 or 7 till 9, 10 or 11.
Every day?
Every day, and it's permanent. It wasn't part-time.
Like, so you don't have time off?
No, I filled every day, and 5 days a week, I filled every day, and then 2 days a week, I just did a regular shift. Like an 8-hour shift, not the full. And then sometimes I'd add extra shifts. But those I could call in. They always needed someone. And so if I needed a day off, so like for example, I usually need to take at least 1 or 2 days off a month. Otherwise I found I wasn't proper, and I always thought, why is that? It's just a state of mind. But it was. And so I had to deal with it. And so I realized that it's not, even for me, it's not possible or to be effective without some kind of break and to clear the mind, I think.
When did you realize that?
Because I just felt that, I remember I'd done 33 days straight. I'd been really pushing myself, and I just wasn't making the right decisions. And it's little things, my conversations, the way I'm talking to people, it could be little things. But I notice when I make poor decisions. Because I'm obsessed by it. And so I don't mind making them. I learn from it and try to avoid it the next time, and maybe it tell me a little bit about myself. Am I, did I do something last night that made me lose sleep, or did I drink too much on the weekend, and now I'm making poor decisions, reason not to. And so, I'm...
That's a lot of introspection.
I'm into analysis of myself.
Wow.
And it's easy to analyze myself because it's hard to lie to yourself.
Right.
And so, and nobody has this conversation. It's my own conversation.
Right.
And so,
that's amazing.
There's no.
Okay, but go on. So you worked super hard.
Yeah, I worked super hard, and eventually I got headhunted. I became manager of my school, then regional manager. Then I got headhunted by Britannica Japan to be the president of the company. Yeah. They only had 6 schools. The other school I had worked for had 220. And so, and then what happened was, what they didn't tell me is they were relying on an IPO to do their expansion plan, which I was supposed to lead. And then they told me that the dot-com crash was the year of the dot-com crash. And so they told me they're not going to have an IPO. I go, what's IPO? That's when I had to figure out what IPOs were. I mean, I didn't have a business background. I'm a life science. I got a life science degree from Queens. Yeah. And so at that time, so what was I going to do? Well, I was in a great school already. I was training there, and I said, well, if you're going to close this down, what would happen to all my students? Why don't I just start my own school? I have all the students here already. So that's what I did. I went to, it wasn't very fancy. I went to a community center and I rented space. Okay. And then I brought my students, and I had an instant school because they were going to close anyways. I got permission, of course, and they allowed it. And then when we finally came back, I sold it and came back to Canada. And what to do when I'm back in Canada. So I went right from undergrad to Japan, teaching English, and unfortunately, people already speak English in Canada, generally speaking. And, I had management experience now and maybe some sales experience now, but, I would say to people, could you speak slowly when you call Japan for my references? Could you speak slowly, and could you call around midnight? Because they're 12 hours ahead. So it wasn't very useful to work here. luckily I'd been a good student, and so I started looking at, law schools or medical schools. I always wanted to be a doctor as a kid, so that was my natural, what I had always planned to do when I got back. And then I kind of had forgotten how hard it is to get into medical school. So I looked at the application. I believe I only had like less than 6 weeks. I'd been gone for 8 years, or 7.5 years. And so I was like, I gotta get references. I gotta go back to my professors at Queen's and say, hey, do you remember me? And then I was like, okay. And I don't really have time. And then I look over, and there's the application for pharmacy.
At the time that you're applying?
I'm applying for pharmacy, and I'm like daunted and thinking, I'm probably gonna have to wait for the following year to do a proper application. Maybe I could apply to one school just to it won't matter the quality of it. And thought, I hadn't given up on it, but then when I saw the pharmacy school application open up, and it was a one-pager. It's like, you fill it out. I could fill it out right there.
Right there, yeah.
Pull out my pen, I could fill it out.
Right.
It'd take me maybe an hour.
Okay.
And so I saw interesting, and then that's when I got my kind of flashback to an episode while I had been in Japan. So while I had been in Japan, when I was doing a training session for my staff, I told you I got headhunted to be the president of Britannica Japan, their English school division.
That's amazing, yeah.
And so I was trying to train my staff on how to do an interview when an individual comes in, and we want to assess their level, what level are they in. And then also we're trying to get them to join our school. So it's a combination level assessment and a sales process. Get them to join our school, maybe get them to try one of our classes.
Right.
And so you have to get the levels, and these two young ladies walk in, and they're totally dressed impeccably,
right,
and clearly wealthy, and they speak English pretty well. They're not beginners. They seem to have a fairly intermediate to high level of English, and so I'm conversing, trying to get to know them, trying to also try to pinpoint their level, and some questions you ask is your name, what do you do, where you're from, those kinds of things. And they told me that, oh well, where do you live? And we have a house in Maui, and we have another apartment in Manhattan. Yes, and we have oh really? Yeah, well we have a jet, so it's easier to get through, go there. And so what do you do? And I hadn't asked them yet what they did. I was asking where they live, and we're pharmacists. And I was like, I didn't realize pharmacists,
that's right,
had houses and
right,
apartments in multiple countries,
yes,
and jets. Well, our family owns a chain of pharmacies in Japan, one of the major chains of pharmacies in Japan. And I'm like, okay, so it's a business. I see. Okay, and that was it. I'd like to say that they joined my school. They didn't. But it was over. I never thought of it again. It was just another data point for me that pharmacy was also business. I never thought of becoming a pharmacist. It's not something, unless there's a reason for it.
Right.
Usually it's not a natural instinct
right,
to do that.
Right.
And so fast forward, I hear back then, and in my back of my mind, I realized it's a business because I started managing schools. I'd gotten into business in Japan. I started my own business management.
You already
I started
got
doing
that
my
flavor.
training.
Right.
I got the flavor. I love the
Yes.
management. I love
Right.
the teaching. I love, I found something else besides science that
Yes.
that I liked. And so so when I come back, I saw it, and I said, okay. So I applied, and I was able to get accepted. And from day one, I was saying, yeah, I'm going to own a chain of pharmacies.
Wow.
But of course, it was just a thought.
Right.
But it was a better goal, I thought, than I'm going to go work for somebody.
Right.
I was prepared to go work for someone, of course.
Yeah.
But in my third year, I started calling pharmacies. And most people would hang up the phone. It's like, I'm a third-year student. Call me when you graduate. But some people would talk to me and give me some time. Pharmacists are really, really nice people. It's quite it's a nice profession. The vast majority are really, really good people. It's one of my lucks in my business. A lot of the people I trust are pharmacists. And so I'm choosing from not a random sample of
I got
people.
you. I got you.
And so,
Makes sense.
again, choose the area you're in very carefully. I always tell people, if we're making widgets, you don't want to be my partner. Because I'm not bottom line trying to make the most.
I got you.
I'm impact. We call it having fun. And yes, we need money, but when it's with healthcare, if you're making money through healthcare, it better be appropriate.
And ethical.
It better be earned, yes.
I got you.
If you're cutting a corner in order to make more money, that is not okay.
Right.
It might be okay when you're making something that has nothing to do with safety. You know what I mean? A one-time use product, you're going to use cheaper paper. Maybe that's okay for a bottom line. But when you're in healthcare, it's another level of
Right.
standard you have to have.
Right.
There's a larger responsibility. You know, we get given privilege. Professionals,
right.
we have privileges,
That's
right? It's a
'Cause you-
privilege.
That's right.
And
Because
so
you're dealing with
it's
a
another
life.
level of
That's
responsibility.
right. Absolutely.
And so I
What-
take that very seriously.
What an
And
interesting
so,
story. That's awesome. That's awesome. So what I'm taking from you actually, like I'm trying to get all this pattern.
I apologize.
You have
You
to
know,
go.
I do have
Yeah,
to go.
you have to go. Okay.
But
so
we'll do it again
Thank you,
sometime.
yes. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I realized I was stretched my time, but man, it was
My wife
it was
will be
amazing.
wondering
where you are.
Yes.
Yes, and very grateful for having you on. Thank you
Thank you
for
very much.
those who tuned in to Discover with Sbenati. I hope you gained a little bit of knowledge as to how to get on with your business endeavors. And if you haven't, you can always reach Phil anytime, and I'll if he's gracious enough, I'll leave his email address, and you can email him and maybe do business with him. It was actually an honor, and hopefully we'll have him again soon. Thanks again, Phil.
Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
we'll
being
see you
here.
guys soon.